What's up, everybody? Welcome to a live edition of Lombardi Time Brews. Happy Wednesday to you. Thought I would hop on here. We could discuss anything Green Bay Packers. Just giving people a few minutes to get in here, but there is one topic that I wanted to talk about right away, and it's something that really just kind of spread like wildfire yesterday, as some quotes from Mark Murphy do generally seem to do. And that is Mark Murphy talking about the city of Green Bay deciding to break off lease negotiations just like last week. But look, here's the deal, okay? And this is my take on this. This is my interpretation of this. One, I think it's fairly obvious we can all agree. Like Mark Murphy said, as much the Green Bay Packers are not leaving Green Bay. I even had someone speculate to me yesterday that the city of Green Bay wants to tear Lambeau down so they can have more. No, I don't see that as being the thing here either. What I really think this is the case of is, one, be aware if you've only seen headlines, if you haven't gotten a lot of info about this yet, the lease between the city of Green Bay and the Green Bay Packers for the usage of Lambeau Field still has 9 years remaining on it. That then is followed up by a number of 2-year options that can stretch it, depending on who you believe, to like 18 to 20 years out, that there's still an agreement for the two parties to use Lambeau Field. Where the two sticking points seem to be, and why the city of Green Bay seemingly broke off these negotiations, even though they're so early, is it seemingly looks like the Green Bay Packers came in with a rent payment agreement that was even lower than the status quo. And the city of Green Bay certainly didn't like that. The other thing that seems to be kind of a sticking point is that the city of Green Bay feels as though there should be more access to Lambeau Field for more non-Packer events. Thinking of things like the Billy Joel concert we saw years ago, or the Paul McCartney one, things of that nature that could potentially bring revenue to the city of Green Bay. Now, with so much time left on the lease, why would the Green Bay Packers want to even talk about it so early? And I think a lot of people are just like connecting dots and thinking that it's got a lot to do with the 2025 NFL draft. I don't see it that way. I think it has a lot more to do with the fact that Mark Murphy's retirement date is not too far away, like 14, 15 months away. And they'd rather get this new lease extension in before his tenure is up, in which case they got to start talking about it now, because this is going to be a very complicated legal document that they're about to embark on. The 2025 draft is, no matter what, coming to Green Bay. I just can't see anyone doing a reversal, because there's still like a decade to go on the lease agreement. I don't think we're in any type of danger here of losing that event. But I really think it has a lot to do with the Packers wanting to lock this down before they hand off the reins to somebody else. So that is my take on this. If you have any fear, please don't anymore. Something's going to happen. But then two, the number of inflammatory headlines, clickbait crap. Yeah, no, take it for what it is. It is predominantly nonsense. These two sides have plenty of time to continue to work out this agreement. It's just a bunch of public PR going on, and it's very, very early stages at this time. So something else that I wanted to talk about was the Packers did indeed sign another kicker yesterday, bringing in former Minnesota Viking Greg Joseph. Now, this appears to be a legitimate veteran competition for Anders Carlson. And yeah, rightfully so. Joseph has some really good power numbers. He's hit a 61-yarder before. But if you look over the last couple of years, Anders, what he did last year is pretty close to what Greg Joseph did as well. So is this like a massive upgrade from day one? No, realistically not. But is it competition at this juncture? Yeah, that it is. And might the Packers still opt to go with the veteran kicker? Yeah, totally. We don't know who the leader in the clubhouse may be at this time. But at the very least, it's competition for Anders. And then the last topic that I really did want to talk about, just to update, is the Brazil game. Yeah, I could have swore, and I know other people are in this camp, like a month ago, 6 weeks ago, like the Packers were ruled out of an interview, but apparently that's not the case. And so that's part of my confusion here. But officially now, Mark Murphy even did mention as much. The Packers are one of two teams that are the finalists for week 1 in Brazil. I mean, that would be pretty thrilling. Mark Murphy did mention as though there's some things to consider, such as the runway length going from Green Bay Airport. Apparently, it's too short to do a direct flight all the way to Brazil. So the Packers would probably have to drive down to Milwaukee and then hop on a plane to Brazil. And Murphy is framing that as a competitive disadvantage for Green Bay versus other teams. So he didn't really sound like a dude who wants to go. And yeah, he's always been opposed to these international games. So I can't say that that's particularly shocking, but hey, it's what we got for right now. So just want to dive into the comments here. That's all I had to cover. So I kind of want to hear what other people have to say. Mark, hello. Hello to you. The Packers are putting a lot of money into the stadium. Yeah, you're totally right. And Murphy mentioned specific numbers, including they've done 600 million. They are aiming to do another billion into Lambeau Field in their future vision planning. They had 80 million ready to go this offseason to renovate the atrium, some concourse stuff. And basically, Murphy said as much that since the city of Green Bay kind of broke off negotiations, that they're not going to go through with putting that $80 million into the concourse and everything else, which to me is like just complete posturing, right? Like he said as much as though we know we're not leaving Lambeau, we know we're not leaving Green Bay. Well, then just like go through with the renovations anyway. Unless, of course, you're just looking for public pressure to be put upon the city council of Green Bay because you're following a timeline and really want to get this deal done. Then Mark Murphy might be on something, and I have a feeling that that's what Mark is up to with those comments. But yeah, Mark, you are spot on. The Packers do invest heavily in Lambeau, and I'll throw this on too because I said it on Twitter. If you still happen to be of the opinion that the Packers stock sales are completely worthless, part of the reason they don't have to ask for public money continually from Green Bay or do, referendums for huge investments from the state into Lambeau, part of the reason is because of the stock sales. So it's a good thing we got going. Chris Hand, hello to you. Hello. Go Pack, go. Steve saying John and Claudia can borrow my hot air balloon to go to Brazil and do that game live. Well, hey, good. Last time we talked, you didn't have the hot air balloon. So if you've got it in hand now, Steve, absolutely, positively, we would love to borrow it because, I don't think we're getting down to Brazil to see that game live otherwise. So thank you so much. All right, so those are the topics that I had to cover. Now, if anyone out there would like to talk specific draft prospects, anything like that, feel free to throw that down in the comments. I got the windows open, ready to talk about it. But one thing I can talk about in this regard that I know is a very popular topic of discussion right now, and I even got smacked around a little bit for it on my last mock draft just earlier this week. Offensive line, right? Like, yeah, it's unequivocally a need, no doubt about it. Dave Bakhtiari, not that he was playing, he is gone. John Runyon Jr., gone. Josh Myers does not have that much time left on his contract. You're currently starting Sean Ryan at right guard. Rasheed Walker, even though he did really, really good stuff at left tackle, he still's only been starting for a year. Elton Jenkins had kind of a down year last year. So there are some significant questions on the offensive line. But I'm still very, very hesitant to say that the Packers' number one need that they're going to pursue would be a tackle in round one. Part of the reason that I say that is because it does kind of go against some of their more recent MO. But two, I'm not sure that where the Packers are at pick 25, that there's going to be a surefire, like Packers type round one offensive lineman. For instance, everyone talks about the Duke offensive lineman, Graham Barton. And he's a wonderful player. He's got a high level of nasty. For the Packers, though, he's probably an interior offensive lineman, which is even more against their historical precedents of someone that they'd look to in round one. Part of the reason they don't necessarily view him as a tackle is because of arm length. The Packers are very strict generally when it comes to arm length. In fact, pulling up the numbers right here, for tackles, they like their tackles to have arms that are generally 33 inches or more. On the interior, they do get away with slightly shorter arms, generally like 32 inches. Now, Barton, he falls in with, at least according to Raz, arms that are about 32.6 inches long. And you might not think it's much, but for the Packers, who are so incredibly strict a lot of the time with their thresholds, that's the difference between picking a player in round one and not. So I'm not completely sold. It might happen, but I'm not totally sold on the Packers pursuing a player like Graham Barton in round one. What I think is more likely, whether it's foolish or not, I'm just saying what I think is likely, is that we'll see the typical Packers approach at the offensive line of maybe round two, maybe round four, something like that. Day two, day three, a cluster of offensive linemen, if you will. Also worth noting that the Packers did have representatives at North Dakota State Pro Day yesterday. Presumably, you would think there are some other prospects there, but quite possibly to check out Jalen Sundle, the tackle that I talked about in the latest mock draft. So, Mark saying would love a list of who meets the standard in the draft. That's a fairly large list, Mark, but I do have all of the typical thresholds, the documents that I've been building for a long time up over here on the side. Name a position, and I'll give you kind of what the thresholds are, and then a couple guys that I know of at least meet those thresholds. Mick, when will the Packers begin cutting players they no longer expect to be on the roster in September? We're a good ways away from that. At last count, I think the Packers have something like 65 under contract. It's something really close to that. And they can carry basically through the offseason like 90 guys under contract. And even then, there's certain exemptions they can utilize to even get them a little over 90. So not anytime soon. If they have any interest at all in seeing a player in camp, mini camp, even included in that, then they're not going anywhere. Because even right now with a roster of 65, they have plenty of space available to them to take care of 11 draft picks that they have right now, to take care of 10 UDFAs. Like they've got plenty of room to add all of these guys and not cut anyone. So we're a good distance away from that. Now, the Packers do right now, after signing Greg Joseph, have 3 kickers on the roster. And even Rich Bisaccia has talked about like having 3 kickers at minicamp. It's just not even really that practical because what are you going to do with all of them? Well, yeah, then maybe in that kind of case where they're drastically overloaded at a certain position, maybe then we'll see a move. But other than that, if they've got any interest in seeing a guy play any more football for them at all, and the position isn't overbloated, we're a pretty decent span of time away from cutting anyone. Mark, is that something you can do by position later? Yeah, I think I did a lot of, like, I've come up with a couple of different ideas. Might be doing that real soon. Kind of going through talking about what their historical thresholds may be. So stay tuned. Not all in one episode. No, it definitely wouldn't be. It would be a series for sure. So stay tuned. Mark might be covering that soon. Steve saying, I can see us trading up for either one of the top tackles or JPJ. JPJ, he's an interior lineman, and the Packers just generally, I don't want to get myself in trouble here because watch them do it now, but generally speaking, they don't draft interior linemen in round 1. The earlier that they generally do that would be like Myers in round 2, but you're really talking like 3, 4, 5 is where they really like to get him. Elton Jenkins was also round 2. So JPJ, while he's a phenomenal player, and probably like he looks the part of stepping right into being a great center, one of those typical profiles of a guy who you just know is going to be a Pro Bowler year in and year out. It's just not the way the Packers operate. Trading up for one of the upper echelon tackles like a Joe Alt, maybe. With 11 draft picks, I would not be shocked at all if Brian Gutekunst has his eye on somebody and wants to go get him. The question for me from a roster building standpoint is if it is, let's say, like a Joe Alt, one of those top tackles, right? And Brian Gutekunst is going to go get one. Then what do they do from a roster building standpoint? Because they've got Zach Tom at right tackle, and they probably don't want to move him after the successful year that he just had. You also got Walker at left tackle. Are they willingly going to bench Walker now, or do they have plans of wanting to do that, even after Brian Gutekunst has spoken so highly about him all offseason long? I don't know. I think they're looking more depth, in my personal opinion. Brandy, hello, Brandy. I got the Dolphins game circled as a game to gauge how the defense is doing, especially if the rumored entrance of the Dolphins and Xavier Worthy is true. Like if they trot out a starting trio at wide receiver of Xavier Worthy, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, whoever the corners are for the Packers in that given week, giddy up because they are going to be sprinting the entire game. But no doubt about it. The Packers defense against Mike McDaniel, the weapons they already have without anyone else, it is one of the larger games. Another really good litmus test for me, again, will be the Detroit Lions. They just seem to be a team that even before they were good, let's say, in the last couple of years, they seemingly had the Packers number. And the Packers have done some work at chipping away with that, kind of splitting season series as of late. But they're an excellent in-division litmus test right now, especially for the defense. Mark saying, would love to see them trade back. Yeah, but how many picks do you want to have, Mark? Like the main meat of this draft, I will say, unless you get one of the really top tier high end guys, does seem to be like picks like 35 to 70, let's say. So if you trade back into that and get more guys in that range, yeah, I'd be all for it. But to trade back and just continue to accumulate more and more, yeah, I don't know how many rookies they want this year, but yeah, I understand the want to get more into that range for sure. Mick, is there a very experienced old quarterback for minicamp and training camp so all of our receivers catch quality throws? Huh. Trying to think of who's out there. I'm not going to lie to you, Mick. I haven't exactly looked at the quarterback free agent list a lot. There's got to be some just old heads out there, right? But none that are really coming to mind, like top of head for me. I really think they like Sean Clifford a lot, and they want to give him every chance to continue to be number two, the Doug Peterson to the Brett Favre, or even the Matt Flynn to the younger Aaron Rodgers. I really think that there's something there that they want to hang on to. Now, we might still see them spend a draft pick, especially a day 3 pick, on a quarterback. That wouldn't shock me at all, especially with the way Brian Gutekunst is talking about wanting to get back to drafting quarterbacks. But then you're probably looking at someone developmentally for like a number 3. Yeah, maybe they'll bring in a camp arm, but I think that that's all it would wind up being. Steve saying, I really hope we get Edgerrin Cooper. I understand the want. I understand the desire. Supposedly the Packers love him. And he is probably the biggest disruptor, probably like in terms of pure football play, maybe like the number 2 linebacker off ball in this draft. The only one who I think could be above him in people's rankings would be Peyton Wilson. But of course, there you got all the medicals that drag Wilson down. As I said in my mock draft, my only concern with Cooper is just the redundancy with Quay. They've already said that their intention is to play Quay at will, the weak side backer. Now in 4-2-5, it doesn't really matter. You've got split backers, right? But in their base 3-4, they still need someone to play the strong side. And I don't see McDuffie doing that. They've said Quay isn't going to do that. So if you add another Cooper to it, another guy who's projected to be weak side, like eventually, aren't you just overly redundant at the position? Or do they just not care because their preference is they really want to get him for 4-2-5 and they're willing to just deal with it in their base 4-3? We don't know. We can't say that for sure, but I totally get the want. It's a really, really fun player. And if Quay is allowed to just roam and go wreck stuff and you add another one, yeah, right, that'll be fun. Mark saying, unless a top tackle or cornerback is there. Oh, in terms of like a trade up or staying put. I see what you're saying instead of trading back. Yeah, I got you. Steve saying, I've been hearing Brenton Cox Jr. is going to be getting time this year. I really, really like him. He is a menace. Yeah, certainly with Kingsley Enagbare being out, like Brenton Cox Jr. in some ways kind of just slides right into being edge 4. Like you've got your big 3 in Rashawn, Preston, LVN, and then Brenton Cox Jr. is kind of just next man up right now. The only thing with Brenton Cox Jr. is I don't know, and I have not looked into this. I haven't researched this, so I'm not going to lie, is whether he's actually like played with his hand in the dirt before, if he's played any type of 4-3 end. I think collegiately he was just more so a 3-4 backer which, yeah, it's still edge, and there's not a tremendous difference in modern times with that, but still, just I don't know if he's done it. Let's see here. Brandy, over under 5 flags on each team conducting new kickoff rules in the preseason. There's going to be a lot. Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go with 5 total in the game, right? Before especially Bisaccia loses his mind. But all of the rules, especially, like, I think an under talked about part of this is some of the timing of the new kickoffs, such as like when the receiving team blockers can begin movement. I think that that's really going to take some coaching, especially for guys coming up from the collegiate game. Like that's going to be a big difference. And especially, like you mentioned, preseason guys who are UDFAs or guys who are camp bodies, they might mess that up a bit. So yeah, I'm with you. I could certainly see some problems there. Steve saying, here's 3 quarterbacks for you. Spencer Rattler from South Carolina, Brady Cook from Missouri, and Michael Pratt from Tulane. Yeah, I think it was Mina Kimes who was just talking on Twitter yesterday about how it kind of sounds like Rattler might actually be sneaking his way into the back end around 2, in which case, no for Green Bay, definitely. But yeah, I mean, like, he's obviously a tremendously fun quarterback to watch, but if they're talking like day 2 for him, I have a really hard time imagining any draft capital is going to go in that direction. Mark saying, Goody said they want someone who can play all the positions at linebacker. Yeah, and I guess that I did hear that too. And I think I would just say, like, that's kind of my reservation with Edgerrin Cooper is, are you rolling him out at Sam in your base 4-3? And granted, they're only going to play their base like 20% of snaps, it's believed. But are you? I don't know about that. Or are they better off going with someone like a Junior Colson who projects to be a very, very strong Sam in the NFL? I don't know. We'll find out. Brandy saying, seems like right guard needs to be addressed. Sean Ryan, the answer. To me, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Sean Ryan. I think he did some nice things, especially in the run game towards the end of the year. But they still had him in basically a 50-50 time split with John Runyon Jr. for a reason. And I think there's a lot of us who wanted to upgrade over John Runyon Jr. and how he played last year. So is Sean Ryan the answer? Maybe he'll continue improving. Maybe they like what they saw a lot better. I think it would be very, very foolhardy to walk into next year with him just being handed a starting job. I've talked before about, like, one of my concerns with Keyshawn Nixon being retained is this would be year 2 in a row of just giving him a guaranteed starting job when I'm not sure the play the year prior has put him in a position of just getting this unquestioned every snap type role. And if they walk in with Sean Ryan as the presumed starter at guard and don't have anyone else there to compete, then I think they're kind of doing the same thing. And that does seem very foolhardy. It does seem concerning, to say the least. So maybe he is the answer if he continues to develop. But from what we saw at the end of the year, it's not like he was playing insanely well. Better for him? Yeah, absolutely. But insanely well to where he should be handed a guaranteed starting job, no questions asked? No. And they still got to look at that. Steve saying, focus. Steve saying, in college, Brenton Cox played with his hand. Okay, thank you, Steve. Steve did not know that, but thank you. Thanks for chiming in with that. Mark saying Junior Colson is too short. I actually don't recall. Oh, I mean, I trust you, but I don't recall his height. Let me actually, since we're live, I can punch it in just right here. Take a look. Junior Colson. So Junior Colson is 6'2", and at least, well, I think they might still, like, he clears their threshold because generally speaking, off-ball linebackers for them have to be a minimum of 6'1", and Junior Colson looks to be 6'2". So, I mean, yeah, maybe if you're talking Sam style, but like, he is just over their historical precedent at linebacker, off-ball at least. So, Mick saying strong safety, tough tackler, draftee. Ooh. So guys who would even be considered for the Packers, strong safety, strong tackler, off the top of my head, you've got the one from Wake Forest. I'm blanking on how to pronounce it, but it's something along the lines. Oh, I'm going to butcher it. It's something along the lines of like Mustafa, the Wake Forest strong safety. D'Adrian Taylor Demerson, Texas Tech. He probably is going to be free safety, but he's renowned as a strong tackler. Cooper DeJean, if he's picked, would probably be strong safety for Green Bay. His missed tackle percentages that I went over in the mock draft recently were 12% one year and 3% the other year. And there are others too, because there's like Keaton Oladopo, who's probably going to be a day 3 pick. He's renowned as very aggressive. That might cause some problems in the NFL, but certainly a strong tackler. So there are a bunch. Let's see. There's also Jordan Hicks. He projects to be strong safety. He's renowned as a strong tackler. Cole Bishop. It's unknown whether he would really play post safety or strong safety, but he's renowned as a strong tackler. If you're looking, I would recommend staying away from like Bullock, though, from USC. Wouldn't look at him. That's kind of the big rag on him, is the man does not tackle well. So in terms of like box safeties, strong safeties, now everyone that I listed probably is going to meet the Packers thresholds, but there are a bunch of them that are strong tacklers that are disruptors up in the box. And so, yeah, the Packers really need to nab one. We'll see when they do it. Brandy saying Josh Jacobs cuts pretty well and traffic should fit pretty well in the outside zone. I very much agree with you. Although the one point that I would add is over the years, I don't have it offhand, but if you kind of look at their tendencies, they've been running out towards the tackles kind of less and less over the last 3 years. And luckily Jacobs can carve right up through the middle too. So I do like that. Mark saying the response to trade back is if the positions they want in the first round aren't there. Oh, yeah. No, okay. That makes total sense. Like if they're sitting at 25 and they don't have any players left who have a first round grade for them, then you might as well trade back and just get additional assets. Yeah, absolutely. That 100%. Patrice, are they planning on getting a running back? I would think so. And the reason why I say that is because you've got Josh Jacobs, who, yes, did sign a 4-year, $48 million deal, $12.5 million guaranteed. But ultimately, his contract is kind of year by year, given its structure. Then you also have A.J. Dillon, who re-signed for only 1 year. So either they're going to be looking for a future running mate, like long-term with Jacobs. And keep in mind, too, when they drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round, they also had Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. So they're not afraid to spend premium draft capital on the running back position, even though they've got to. So you've got Dillon for 1 year, Jacobs, who's kind of on a year-to-year deal. I think they're either going to be looking for the future stability of the running back position, or at the very least, a running mate beyond this year for Josh Jacobs. And then we've got to see how Emmanuel Wilson may fit into that as well. But I do think a running back selection is coming, and it could be earlier than a lot of people think. Brandy, does the defense have a person that can cover a tight end in Xavier McKinney? Can Xavier McKinney cover a tight end? Yes, absolutely. Fully. Do they have a linebacker who can cover a tight end? I don't know. That's a lot tougher of a call. Quay has shown some ability to do so. Some. McDuffie is not really one that you want in coverage all that much. So McKinney, yeah, I would trust McKinney to run with nearly any tight end in the league. Linebacker, I'm going to go with no at this time. Let's go with that. Dame, what do you think about our third round 91 for Sam Cosmi from the Commanders? Without being super familiar with Cosmi's contract details as they stand right now, it feels, I don't know, feels a tinge rich for my blood without thinking about it much at all. Yeah, I'd probably have to say no personally. Let's see, Steve saying, I really want us and hope we draft Max Melton, cornerback from Rutgers, if we don't get Cooper DeJean. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a guy with outside-inside versatility. His combine was, I don't want to say better than expected because his actual play does look like a great athlete, but his combine was again, I don't want to say otherworldly, but it was really, really strong, perhaps even better than a lot of people expected it to be. So Max Melton, absolutely 100%. I would love that. Mick saying, was the Purdue running back Tracy a receiver in the past, receiver out of the backfield? From what I recall reading about him, he was a receiver. Oh, don't quote me on that. I might be mixing him up with a different day 3 guy. Off the top of my head, though, without looking it up, I really want to say that Tracy did play receiver for a couple of years, and those skills are really apparent. That receiving is a very big part of his game. So, yeah, the big knock with Tyrone Tracy, if you're looking at him, is the fact that he's already 24 years old. That may be a little tough for the Packers to stomach. Steve saying, and I also like Elijah Jones, cornerback from Boston College. Yeah, I think his RAS was somewhere in like the 6 range, which if they're grabbing him on day 3, maybe. But any earlier than that, probably not. Mark saying they say AJ played hurt last year. Yeah, he definitely did. He had a lot going on. He just continually got more and more banged up as the season was going on, especially in Aaron Jones' stead when he was taking most of the running back duties. Then, of course, he ended the season with that stinger, which to miss as much time with a stinger as he did was frankly pretty concerning. So, yeah, look, is A.J. Dillon at this juncture the answer to a team's running back room? No, probably not. But I think even with Jacobs there, Dillon is probably still a slightly better back in terms of pass pro, which the Packers do value highly. He knows the offense inside and out. He's revered as a leader in the locker room. Yeah, great. For a number 2 or number 3 running back, they could do a lot worse. And especially for the price they got him at. Absolutely. Steve, and at guard, I can see them getting Mahogany from Boston College. Yeah, big brute, right? Or even Mason McCormick from South Dakota. The only reservation that I have with Mason McCormick or Christian Mahogany is almost always when they choose an interior offensive lineman, almost always, that lineman somewhere in their collegiate resume has tackle experience. Mahogany, McCormick, I don't think that they do. And that may very well take them off the Packers board. All right, a couple more before I get a good jump in. Mick saying hit like, yes, hit like, thank you. Let's see, just a couple more, I gotta go. Brandy, seems like the Packers D-line is solid minus an edge rusher. Thoughts? Yeah, I think they might very well be looking to upgrade edge 4. Keep in mind, too, in this new 4-3 format, too, we might see Carl Brooks out on the edge more. They might kick him out like he used to do in college, where he played a lot of over-the-tackle, outside tackle type stuff. We might see that again. Same thing with Kobe Wooden. They might ask him now to kick outside and become truly what is an edge now in a 4-3. In which case, then you are kind of diminishing the depth at defensive tackle. So overall, is the defensive line overall strong? Yeah. But could they improve it? Yes. And I should mention as well that they have 6 top 30 visits that are public knowledge at this time. 2 of them belong to defensive linemen, one being Christian Boyd, the defensive lineman from Northern Iowa, the other with Michael Hall Jr., the 20-year-old defensive lineman from Ohio State. So 2 out of their 6 top 30 visits on D-line so far. Even if it's solid, I think the Packers might be looking there. Dan saying, sorry, I'm late to this. Who would be your choice at running back and tackle and why? Okay, so running back, I could just tell you I do really like Jonathan Brooks, but like my favorite running back in this class is probably Jalen Wright, running back from Tennessee. I also, for a little bit more Packers-y type of a running back, if they want to go thunder, that would be Trey Benson, Florida State. Not that he's total thunder, but he's at least stockier than like a Jalen Wright. Little bit more how the Packers kind of like their bigger backs. So I'd probably have to go with those 2. At tackle, all right, so let's take out like the top tier tackles. Let's get rid of them because they'll probably be gone. Pooney from Kansas would make a lot of sense. He's got interior and outside experience. I do really like Jalen Sundle. I think he's being underrated in a lot of different ways. Let's go with those 2 for my like day 2, day 3 type tackles. Let's go there. Chad saying, all right, I got 2 more and then I got to jump. Chad saying, I think they could go OL heavy in the draft. When you look at the depth behind the starting five, it's pretty thin. No doubt about it. And I think I mentioned in the mock draft too, Royce Newman is currently fifth of the Packers offensive players in terms of cap hit at over $3 million. That's concerning. He also happens to be their only depth on the interior at left guard, center, or right guard. That's even more concerning. Like, I'm not sure either one of those things remain true much farther into the offseason. So, yeah, I think that it could go OL heavy in this draft. It would not shock me to see 3 offensive linemen drafted. But as I said, at the very, very top, I just don't know about round 1. Brandy saying, what are your thoughts on Myers? I think his reputation in kind of the fan base is a little bit worse than his actual play. I'm not saying he's incredible, but I think he's gotten a little bit worse of a rep than how he truly plays. I think he's underrated in pass pro, but he has never been much of a run blocker, which has been very disappointing since they drafted him. And that's like, I think they expected better in that regard. What really saved him this last season, and what I think has them we're just kind of walking into next year with him as the unquestioned starter again, is they speak so highly of his leadership on the line, his ability to communicate on the line, the way he makes calls. They seem to be so enamored with his ability to do that, that's what's kind of earned him the unquestioned starting job at center. Now, with that being said, I think he's got 1 year left on his contract. I'm kind of speaking out of turn here a little bit because I didn't look him up recently, but they might still have their eyes on the future, because I'm not sure he earns a second contract in Green Bay, even with how enamored they are just with his communication ability. So they might still be looking towards the future for sure. And to close us off, Mark saying, great to see so many people in here. Great to see the show grow. Yes, thank you so much, everybody. It is time for me to get on out of here. Thanks so much for hopping into the Lombardi Time Brews live. On Friday, I'll be performing a mock draft roundup, taking a look nationally at who everyone is saying the Green Bay Packers should take in round 1 and beyond. So be on the lookout for that Friday afternoon. Thanks so much for being here. And as always, go Pack Go.